Hello and welcome to the Thinking Cap Solutions podcast. We talk about everything content, audience and engagement. Plus, part of our core business is talking leadership. Hello, Mickey Ma.
Corey K, great to see you, mate. Exciting because today's episode is inspired from the evolution of, of last week's episode, which was on toxic high performers. And the amount of feedback we got was really amazing.
It certainly seemed to have touched a nerve, or at least been very relatable for those in the workplace. And thanks to someone who actually shot through about 5 different areas that we could play. Today's topic is thanks to them.
Yeah, and look, shout out to Liam for your support and listening, but also to sort of come back and go, hey, love to hear what you guys have to say about, these 3 or 4 subjects, which was great. And, Liam, this one's for you, buddy. Today we want to talk about how does an employee progress when they're working under poor/bad/weak leadership.
Just listed out what exactly we're talking about, what could live under that.
Things like lack of communication, lack of ability to make decisions, throwing people under the bus instead of taking responsibility themselves, not seeking or not giving feedback to help you progress, lack of vision, so you don't understand what's the greater good or why you're there, perhaps showing favoritism and bias to certain people, maybe the higher performers on the team and not necessarily those that are the quieter ones, the inability to make decisions or being inconsistent with the decision making, bit of a dictatorship, it's their way or the highway. I think you get the picture, right?
Yeah, and even hearing you do that list and being a leader myself, instantly inconsistent messaging was a really big challenge for me personally. So I'm a very excitable person and I love the creativity of what the job would offer. So bringing people in, getting them excited was a part of getting people up and about. Sometimes 24 hours later, I would fall off the idea, but I didn't communicate that. Poor communication on my behalf over time starts to erode your relationship with the team. Only having been confronted with it, did I realise how bad it was getting. And such what seems like an easy fix was just communicating exactly where my head was at. Hey, we're just riffing at the moment. It's just an idea, a simple fix, but that poor communication and all those lists can really undermine great teams if you've got that poor leadership. So hopefully from today's episode, Mickey, we can offer some solutions, some ideas, some tips. If you are in an environment which isn't ideal and not all of us can just exit stage left, how you can not just cope with it, but sometimes you can thrive in poor or bad leadership.
Yeah, and we're going to share our own experiences, both as leaders and the things that we've learned and how we've done that, but also we've also had our fair share of working under leaders that necessarily haven't been their best either, right? So we could talk with great experience and knowledge in this area, and you do need to know where your exit strategy is, and because we understand that if your mental health is impacted and those kind of things, at some point you're going to have to cut the cord. But we also understand that it's not that easy for people to just throw in the towel, because job security, financial reality doesn't necessarily allow us that. So the tips today are there to go, okay, before you jump ship, here's some things to try first and to consider first.
Okay, let's start with what we'll call insecure leadership. This is usually a yes person. They manage up, but they don't manage the team very well, and probably a lack of inspiration, not an inspiring leader.
Typically, you'll find with these people, the message that you get come directly from above, and you can kind of sense pretty quickly, this is not their words, this is not their decision. There's not necessarily a lot of depth to what they're articulating. So it's very hard to buy into that as an employee, isn't it? So that can lack motivation. It can kind of lack inspiration. So it's not an easy one. So part of the steps here, and I think no matter what style of leader you're dealing with, is control what you can control would be, one of those first tips, which is, okay, you can't necessarily directly change them, but you are in control of your own environment here. So what are you doing to keep yourself positive, professional, and holding to your own integrity? Because it's easy to become part of the problem, right? And start to whinge and bitch and moan to others in the building. And that starts to impact your quality of work and your quality of output there. And that rubs off on other people. You keep that up, the focus is going to become on you. So holding that professionalism and integrity is, one of the first tips that I would encourage.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more around that slippery slope of seeking the counsel of others, particularly if they're in the business with you. And I've gone through that. Whilst you encourage people to talk, I think when that negative talk happens, it's just going to make things worse. And we're working with a client at the moment who's going through exactly the same situation where they feel that they're not being led, that they're uninspired. To a degree, they think they're better than the person that's actually the leader. We were able to navigate with them and show them the opportunity that exists. So, okay, you're lacking a leader, you've got experience, why don't you lead? You don't need the title, right, Mickey, to be the leader. You can showcase those qualities if your leader is not doing it.
Leadership has got nothing to do with the title of your job and responsibility. There are some leaders with a title, but they aren't necessarily great leaders at all. So don't be confused by that. Leadership's not about a title. Leadership is around, stepping in, stepping up, showing accountability, bringing others along for the ride. And anyone on any team can do that, irrespective of how long you've been with an organisation or what your title and responsibilities is. And the client you're talking about who we're mentoring at the moment is simply that. You've been around long enough. You know what's missing, what the team. So step in and step up. And that's not about undermining the existing leader, by the way, because we're not saying take control. What we're simply doing is take control of the environment you're in. So there are voids there that you can simply step in and help be part of that solution.
For them, they felt like they're going backwards. I'm not growing. Well, you know what? This is going to be more growth than you could ever imagine by actually taking on a leadership role within your team and driving standards. So there is great opportunity. But Mickey, let's talk about, because I think it's also important that you have honest conversations with your leader. What would be your advice if, particularly, because I think frustrations can fester, if you're going to talk to this particular style of leader, how would you communicate with them?
If the leader isn't made aware of the behaviours or lack of behaviour that's getting the best out of you or the impact they might be having on you, then how do you expect them to change? So giving them constructive feedback is highly valuable. And that can be overwhelming for some people to go, oh my God, I can't sit down with my leader and give them feedback. I would challenge you to go, well, hang on, you can't expect them to change if they don't know. So how would I go about that? Well, I think doing it in a timely manner, so not letting it fester for 6 months where you're absolutely your wit's end, because how you perhaps conduct that conversation may not be at your best. Not doing it at the end of the day where you're just pulling your hair out and going, I've had enough of this, and you perhaps might say things in a more heated way or that's a bit more attacking of the person. I would encourage that you do it in a way that removes the emotion. Focus on the behaviours, not the person. You're not there to attack them. You're there to say, when you do this or when you don't do that, this is the impact that's happening on me. This is what I need from you. And I would like to think that any leader, any decent leader at least, will absolutely embrace that kind of feedback, because it gives them the chance to go, thank you, you've made me aware of it. And then it's up to them to go, okay, I'm going to do something with that. So having that conversation is really important.
So, Mickey, if you are lacking that inspiration, you're not getting what you need from your leader, outsourcing can be a great tool.
Yeah, so even if you've had the conversation with the leader or perhaps you're not ready yet, the other thing I would encourage you to do is to seek counsel from some of your peers and other leaders within the organisation that you trust will be open and honest with you. And again, this is not undermining your existing managers, because you're not going bad-mouthing them. You are simply seeking counsel from those that you entrust to go, give me some honest feedback around how I'm going. What are my strengths? Where can I improve? This is where I want to go. Is there advice that you can give me to help me keep me steered on that path? And I've been in that situation myself where I've felt that really lacking from my leader, and, I needed to do that. And it was really valuable to open up to those people, show some vulnerability around, I'm feeling I'm not great at this and I need some help. And you'll be amazed by those around you that are prepared to support you.
Let's go to the other end of the scale, and that's a dictatorship style.
There's only 2 leaders that I've ever not enjoyed working with in all my career, thankfully. And one of those had those kind of qualities. And for me, that was, it's their way or the highway. So there was no kind of collaboration to hear my thoughts, my advice. They micromanaged me. So every piece of work I did, they had to check, and I'd been in the role for 5 years. So there was a lack of trust and being empowered. If you weren't doing a 12-hour day, they were thinking that you were slacking off. And for me, I'm more motivated by doing a great quality job, as opposed to it's all about the hours you do. It's about the quality of the work that you do. So it just really didn't resonate with me, and that was challenging.
Yeah, and typically they would have a really big personality, right?
They are, in particular, considering I was, early 20s, that's amplified because I just didn't have the experience and the tools that I do now to know how to necessarily navigate through that.
So, okay, well, if someone's in that situation now, what would you suggest? What would be the advice?
Yeah, well, if I could go back and speak to a younger Mickey and to anyone that's currently going through it, is to go, you will get through this, but you're also getting a great lesson that will pay off in dividends down the track. And for me as an aspiring leader, it taught me some of those traits that I didn't want and the type of leadership I didn't want to be. From an employee, equally, you're starting to form opinions on the type of leader that you want to work with or perhaps not work with. But you're also learning resilience. That was definitely something that I, when on reflection, realized that I got through it. It wasn't all the bad things. I also learnt resilience and learnt some of those traits that I weren't going to take into my leadership style.
I think that's such a wonderful insight, mate, to talk about going through that and shaping you as a leader, because it does. Because sometimes it's not around taking the great qualities of someone. Sometimes it's around, well, I don't want to be that kind of a leader. Now, again, we're not suggesting staying in a toxic environment and you're going to grow. Talking about a leadership style that you don't want to adopt. And the only way you're going to learn that is by seeing it.
I think about all the great leaders. They are where they are today from the hard knocks, the risks they've taken, the mistakes they've made, and the challenging situations that they have been in. And, when I think about the things that I'm proud of around the type of leader I am, it typically takes me straight back to the lessons I've learned more so than the great things that have happened. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for amazing people that believed and support me and put me, pushed me forward and supported me. No question about it. But it's those people that made things challenging and interesting and difficult that I actually learnt the most.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to assume that you didn't have a conversation, a one-on-one, to talk about how you're feeling with this particular manager. If you could have your time again, do you think that could have been an approach?
Yeah, time again, I would have had the conversation. But in that moment, I felt that I didn't know how to.
Yeah. Can I just offer a slither of sunlight here in that situation? Because I totally relate to it. And I was in a situation, I was 6 months down the track. The leader was a huge personality, intimidating to me. Like I would feel myself sweating and nervous around them. And I was just at breaking point and the hours and mental anguish. So it was kind of the last straw, and I organised to have a catch up with them. At that stage, thought, well, this will be the end of my career. So I was vulnerable. I talked through the challenge that I have. And this is where I think leadership and the actual person can be separated, because I had a different person in front of me. It wasn't the big verbose, strong leader. It was someone who was looking me in the eye and understood where I was coming from. They listened to me. I felt heard. 10 minutes earlier, there's no way I would have thought that would have been the conversation we had. For anyone who might be going through it, and only you can make the assessment on who you're working with, but there can be a really good result from having that honest conversation with that style of leader.
And I think that's a great example of a great leader that will take on board what you say and acknowledge it, and then where they can be highly supportive of the situation and do something about it. Because, some leaders that it's one size fits all, as we know, that doesn't work like that, because we're all different human beings, and what motivates each of us and gets the best out of us is slightly different.
Let's flip it now, Mickey, and I think it's worth doing this because there can be misrepresentation or a mislabeling of a leader based off maybe it's not the right leadership style for you.
My advice to any employees thinking that they might be in a situation where the leader's bad, poor, or weak is stop for a second and just think about some of these things, because is your view aligned with many other people on the team? And I'm not suggesting go knocking on all of their desks and sort of saying, hey, tell me what you think of the leader, because that starts to fester, a area you don't want to go. But you might realize that, maybe it's just this leadership style doesn't match the kind of leader I need. And that was exactly the situation with the person that I've spoken about, where it was very much a my way, the highway dictatorship, because a lot of people thrived under that person and they've been extremely successful at what they do, but their style just did not resonate with me, did not get the best out of me. So sometimes it's a conflict of styles more so than conflict of the kind of leader that they are. So think about that too, because it might be just you as an outlier point of view. That doesn't mean your view is not valid. It just means, okay, well, everyone else seems to be thriving. Okay, maybe it's just this style doesn't work for me here.
I just love that insight, and instantly it has me thinking around. I remember having a leader who at the time, they're not inspiring, they're weak. And looking at it now with the way that you're putting it together, I go, they're actually really nurturing and caring. That's a wonderful quality for a leader. Now, that probably isn't right for me because of how I'm built. That's a mislabel by me. And I think it's such a great way to look at it, and such a great piece of advice to take that step back and look at the leadership, and maybe it's just not the right fit, and not mislabel people or mislabel managers. Yeah,
and another way that leaders can be mislabeled too, and I think about this, it's happening globally at the moment, in particular in the industry we've come through, Corey, media here in Australia, where it's not a week goes by that we don't hear about new redundancies. It's very quick to label a company, a CEO, a leader as not caring about people when they're making people redundant. Now, I know what it's like to have a seat at the table when conversations are out, we're going to have to make some people redundant. No one's enjoying those conversations. No one sleeps well when they go home that night, putting their head down on the pillow, knowing that they have to wake up tomorrow morning and face someone and say, I'm sorry, but your employment's finished. We're making you redundant. No one enjoys having those conversations. But you know what? That's what great leadership is, making the tough decisions. And you know what? Sometimes some people are sacrificed through redundancies to keep more people in jobs, because guess what? They don't do it now. The risk is there is no business and no one has a job. It's not nice. It's not easy, but that's leadership and that's their job. So cut them some slack, because leaders do have hearts, and they do have a conscience, and yeah, sometimes we don't get things right.
I love having these conversations with you. It's quite cathartic, actually. I think there's some really good tips out of that. So just summarise exactly kind of what we've covered there that could be useful for anyone out there who might be going through this.
Yeah, so look, if you're in a situation where you feel that you're sitting under weak, bad or poor leadership, hold your professional integrity. That's number one. 2, look for the opportunity to sit down with your leader in a timely manner and offer them that constructive feedback. Make it about the behaviour, not around the person. Look for opportunities to seek counsel or feedback on your performance and where you can grow through peers and other leaders within the organisation. Consider what your goals are and stay focused on the path that you're on. If you can look yourself in the eye at the end of each day and go, I know I'm doing a really good job and I'm doing my best, then quite often then that can be enough to keep you on focus. And the other one is make sure you do know what your exit strategy is, because at some point it might come where you have to pull the cord. So knowing at what stage is it that you will do that.
If any of this resonates and you think maybe we could help, we would love to have these conversations.
Yeah, we offer mentoring and leadership support and coaching. So reach out to us, thinkingcapsolutions.com.au, or you can get to us on LinkedIn, Thinking Cap Solutions, all one word.